I'll report out as soon as we go live. So we're back live streaming. It is approximately 7:27 p.m. We apologize for the length of time we were out for in camera. I will just report out to say that council provided direction to the CAO in regards to ongoing litigation and employee negotiations, and the CAO will carry those forward. Thank you. So we've just got two counselors out of the room currently. They'll be right back, and then we'll resume the rest of the agenda. Please, those who are hoping to attend, we had to kick you out before. Hopefully you'll come back. Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Sorry, just so the attendees know, if for some reason you can't rejoin the meeting via the code that you put in and the password, you can always go onto our YouTube channel and view it there.
Okay. So the live feed is now back up and running. If we have one attendee, so someone's already gone back in. So who's the attendee? Just out of curiosity. Nancy. Okay. So I know that we had somebody from ExploreNet that was on earlier. Hopefully they'll be able to get back on as well. Okay. So now that we have everybody back in chambers, I just wanted to say thank you again for everybody's patience, and thank you for joining us. It is nice to be back in chambers and acting like our old selves, if you will. We'll move on to the consent agenda. And the motion reads, moved by Councillor Olkey, seconded by Councillor Gorell, that February 8th, 2021, public and council and the March 1st, 2021 committee of the whole meeting minutes be adopted as circulated, and that the December 9th, 2020 and January 2021 EDC meeting minutes and January 26th, 2021 committee of adjustment meeting minutes be received and filed. Any errors or omissions in regards to those minutes that have been circulated? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify. All those opposed, carries. Thank you. And next on the agenda is the staff reports, moved by Councillor Olkey, seconded by Councillor Gorell, that council approves staff reports as recommended at the March 1st, 2021 committee of the whole meeting. Discussion on this motion. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. SR 022-21 Springfield House, Escott Hall.
Yes.
I just want to clarify that when we approved last week, I think it was option number 2. It's not that we're disbanding this building. It's that we're opening up the options so that these people and these groups can continue to provide updates, and
they can provide options to council.
they can provide options. Yeah.
Yep.
As long as it's made aware.
So based on Director Venditti's point last week, the process, and Director Goodman, the process is that now that we've declared the property surplus, I think that, or how was it? I'm not wording it correctly, but essentially it opens up the process where the groups can come forward and provide options for what to do with the property, how it might be dealt with going forward. That we wouldn't be able to do anything with the building unless we have public consultation, which includes a public meeting as well. So we're a far cry from doing anything final with the property at this point, but we've actually started the official process at this point in time.
Yep. And that was my
all you
only
wanted to know.
point, was to make sure that people knew that.
Okay, so any further questions, Counselor Fody?
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. With the same subject matter, Springfield House and Escott Hall, I had suggested last meeting that because it belongs to us, that we should take the first step in initiating a meeting to set up the committee. We have a handful of small committees playing in different directions toward this end result, but because it's our property, maybe we should make the initiative of holding.
Maybe
a
I
meeting.
could ask the staff, because I'm not sure what contact has been made with the group since that meeting last week. I know there's a flurry of emails, but maybe we could get a quick update.
Good evening, everyone, and through you, Your Worship. We actually have a meeting scheduled Thursday morning of this week with the Archives Group. Now, I use the term Archives Group loosely. We're still in the process of defining what an Archives Working Group will be. Now, based on the conversation that we had here at Council last week, we do understand that there are two very definite and finite issues here. One being the contents, the collection, the archival materials themselves. The second being the facility condition. So this week we'll be kind of championing the pushing ahead or moving forward of what are we going to do with the archives? What's going to happen with that collection? We had an additional conversation, of course, again, particularly as it relates to the facility. And at the staff level, we kind of discuss the option of postponing bringing in too many public early on, simply because Dave is already, Director Holiday has initiated the process of the facility condition report, and we'll be speaking with the consultant about making sure that that's the first facility that's addressed as part of the process. Additionally, we will ensure that a heritage review is completed at that time as well. With that information at hand, we will start to then engage stakeholders. We will lead that process. We will have council as part of that process, a designated council person, so that we can start to kind of distill what options are available to us based on that facility condition to come up with a number of viable options that will then be more broadly open to community for consultation, discussion, and whatnot. So we anticipate having the report back to us, I believe, late June into July, at which point we'll have conversations with stakeholder organizations through the summer so that we can have a more fulsome presentation and open house with public and council sometime through the fall. So again, this is very preliminary. We just had the opportunity to sit down as a team today, but that's kind of what we're looking at this particular point.
Satisfy your timeline, Counselor Fody?
It does, Your Worship, and if you're looking for a council volunteer, also do.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, any further, Director Holiday, do you have something to add to that?
Obviously, we haven't engaged the firm yet for the BCAs, but when we have the concern of whether they have the historical experience for facilities, then we will take that into consideration. And if a peer review is required, then we'll take that on as well. I just wanted to make sure that everybody's aware of that.
So Counselor Guerrero?
Through you, Your Worship, and Dave, is it possible to, when the firm is looking at facilities report, I always think that they look to, here's the cost to repair. Is there any such thing as saying, what would it cost to mothball a building for a while? Is that such a thing that can be asked? Thank you.
So when they provide us the information, they give us the facility condition index, which it's a financial value of how much needs to be invested in the facility versus what it's worth. It's a ratio, anything above 1, they're telling you that you need to invest more than what the facility is actually worth. So that's basically how they do it financially.
That's very handy information. Counselor Maybe?
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. As the CAO knows, I have reached out to the Friends of Escott and offered my services to jump on their committee, also having some background in that type of field. So they did get back to me and indicate that they're at the preliminary stages and that they're just trying to feel their way through first and then get back to us on that.
Excellent. Thank you, both counselors who've offered to step up. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. And through you, it's been deemed that the building is not habitable, first and foremost. So I think that's the most important part. And as far as where the archives can go, I understand that through our emails, people would like to have them in a historical building. But if it's a building that can't have people in it, that's kind of hard to do.
Well, I would concur, Deputy Mayor, mainly because when the director and I went into the facility last Monday, a week ago, there was some very, very unique things piled on shelves there. And, I certainly didn't go snooping, but you could see some very, things that from the late 1800s, parchments. There was Thomas Darling. It looked like a journal, like a little journal book from Thomas Darling down at Darlingside. That could be anywhere from 150 to 160 years old. It's those types of things from the archives that are a shame that they aren't displayed. So while I appreciate the Historical Society and their need to be able to display them, the facilities that we have aren't serving their purpose to do the honor to those archived items as well. So while I appreciate a historical building is most desirable, really it's about showcasing the collection and letting the public see what it is that have been saved and salvaged and cared for. So, but I think that this is the first step, and we have the staff members with the right acumen and the ability to see this process through to make sure that that we come up with the best solution for everyone involved, and the safest one for that matter. So thank you. Any further comments or question in regards to staff reports? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the staff reports, please signify. All those opposed, and it's carried. Okay. And the next is information items. Does anybody have anything that they want to have pulled? We did talk about pulling the MFIPA reform. Okay, I need a mover and I need a seconder for this motion that the information items be received and filed with the exception of the request for resolution support received from the Township of Guelph, Aramosa regarding the MFIPA reform. Can I have a mover? Deputy Mayor, and seconder is Councillor Fody. Okay, discussion on this motion. Go ahead, Councillor Fody.
Thank you, Your Worship. I so asked to have this resolution pulled for the simple reason, when you read this, it could very well easily be us. It's just that simple.
Mm-hmm.
And so from that perspective alone, enough said.
Okay. Any further questions or comments in regards to this information items motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify. All those opposed, and it's carried. So this next motion, again, I'll need a mover and a seconder. It goes like this: be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Leeds and the Thousand Islands hereby endorses the resolution received from the Township of Guelph, Aramosa regarding advocacy for reform and MFIPA legislation, and that the resolution be sent to the Ministry of Government and Consumer Services, the MP Michael Barrett, MPP Steve Clark, and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario for further circulation. Mover and a seconder for the motion, Councillor Fody and Councillor Oakey. Okay, any discussion on the motion at hand? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify. All those opposed, and it's carried. Okay. So next, any unfinished business? Seeing none, I will move forward to number 7 on the agenda, which is action items that are required. Moved by Councillor Gorell, seconded by Councillor Olkey, that the council receive the Ontario Clean Water Agency's annual report for the Lansdowne drinking water system. Any discussion on this report? Go ahead, Councillor Maybe.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. Very good report. The only thing that I was kind of wondering, and I didn't see whether it really pointed it out, whether there's any repairs required in this this fiscal year. Thank you.
Director Holliday.
For 2021, sorry, through you, your worship, for 2021, the big repair that we're looking at is with the replacement of the water meters that are not functioning. We have 136 water meters that just all of a sudden they decided not to work anymore. So we've reached out to the supplier, Allen Supply, and they are under warranty. What is not is the physical replacement of them. Now the Aqua, our water management group, they have concerns with replacing the meters because some of the curb stops haven't been operated in multiple years. So with that, we may need to invest some more money in the replacement of those water meters at the same time. So that's where we're at right now. The water meters themselves will be covered. The curb stops will not be. And the cost to physically do the work will not be as well. So we're working on that right now.
Okay. Further discussion or question in regards to this, Deputy Mayor, and then Councilor Grow.
Thank you, your worship, and through you. On one of your reports, July 27th, there was total coliform, which was above average, and then was retested. Is that?
That seems to be an anomaly because there was chlorine residual at the same time. Usually you don't have a contaminant and chlorine residual at the same time. One takes care of the other kind of thing. So they retested the next day and it was within compliance. So there was just something funky about that test. Yeah.
Councilor Grow.
I want to say I was very impressed through you, your worship. I was impressed that the capacity, we are well underutilized on our water system. And I was impressed to read that and very pleased. Thank you.
Any further comments or discussion in regards to this report? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify. All those opposed, and the motion is carried. Thank you. We'll move on to number 8, which is my mayor's update. No. Oh, sorry. I apologize. Getting too far down the rabbit hole here. Next motion on the floor is moved by Councillor Maybe, seconded by Councillor Fody, that the council award the request for proposal RFP OPS 2021-005 to UL Business Solutions Canada Inc. for the building condition assessment for all municipal facilities in the amount of $34,969.82, inclusive of the net HST. Any discussion on this motion? Councillor Guerrero.
Through you, your worship, was there a completion date for that, Dave, in the contract?
I think it was October, was it not?
Sorry, I'm just bringing my laptop up in case there's more questions with 21 submissions. Through your worship, the completion date, we wanted to align with the budget season. So we set October 15th as the hard finish date.
And follow up. And you alluded earlier tonight that you were going to put Springfield House sort of at that top of that list, and maybe we'll get a kind of a pre-report perhaps. Is that fair to say?
The firm that we are recommending, their timelines were well in advance of the October 15th. So we're going to talk to them about making Springfield and Escott a priority. But I don't see any delays with getting that information.
Any further discussion on the motion at hand? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? And it's carried. Next motion is moved by Councillor Maybe, seconded by Councillor Fody, that council approves zoning bylaw amendment attached as Exhibit A to staff report SR-035-21 township initiated administrative zoning bylaw amendments. Any questions or concerns in regards to the motion? It's the one that we were just discussing at the planning meeting. Yeah. So these are the administrative changes that were presented at the earlier planning meeting. Councillor Guerrero.
Is it possible to have a copy of the, of that bylaw. When I became a new counselor, I had to purchase it. And I wonder if you'd make provisions to provide me with one of those. Thank you.
Through your worship, just for clarification, are you asking for a hard copy of the zoning bylaw? We are working on a consolidated digital copy right now that we will have on the website. So I don't know when we'll have a complete consolidated hard copy to provide to you. So at this point,
It's not that she doesn't want to give it to you. She just knows it'll be.
I'd be really
this thick.
happy to be able to provide it to you, but I would want to make sure that it's complete first.
I just wanted to make the point that the 2 times ago CAO, he made me pay $5 for Information Act, and then he made me pay $30 for the report. Thank you.
Wow. I appreciate planning staff's diligence in regards to providing this in a digital fashion so that it's easily accessible for not only staff, but for future residents. Any further discussion? Go ahead, Counselor Maybe.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, number 22 had a setback. A is 12.5 and then B is 13. Is there a real reason why it needs to be 0.5 difference, or can it be adjusted so it's one fits all? Thank you.
Number 22, you said? Go ahead, Madam Planner.
Through your worship, that section is to do with a center line setback from a county road. The way it was presented in the zoning bylaw, the way the provision currently is, the two were in one paragraph and it was very confusing for interpretation purposes. This being administrative, we're just separating what's there so that it's easier to interpret and understand. Those setbacks would be established by the county based on it being their road allowances. So we're not proposing to change any of the performance standards.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify. All those opposed, and it's carried. Next motion, long one. Moved by Counselor Maybe, seconded by Counselor Foti. Whereas a consultation process has occurred regarding a proposed communication facility tower at 620 Hague Road for ExploreNet Communications, whom is represented by Forbes Brothers Limit, the agent. And whereas telecommunication facilities are regulated by Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada, formerly Industry Canada, under the Radio Communication Act, which requires proponents to consult with local land use authorities and follow local protocol concerning location of such facilities. And whereas the township has a consultation protocol described in telecommunication tower and related facilities protocol, the protocol, which includes the council providing comment on the proposed tower. Now, therefore, council advises it supports the proposed location of the tower at 620 Hague Road and directs staff to submit a letter to the agent indicating that the agent has complied with the protocol. The letter shall also indicate that in the event that the tower is no longer required, ExploreNet Communications shall remove the tower from the property. Any discussion on this motion at hand? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, do we have any indication that this tower is going to provide
Better
what-
service?
what we need,
I
and to who is going to receive it?
So I think this is the one that we had at the previous planning. That you
Yeah.
weren't here earlier. Now I realize. Madam Planner, do you want to speak to that?
Thank you. Through you, both of the towers that are proposed that were in front of council for public meeting tonight will improve the coverage in those particular areas. The one
at Hague Road is a replacement.
Yeah, the one at Hague Road is a replacement for one that's currently located on top of a silo. So it's putting it onto a tower. The other one is going into an area to improve the coverage that's in the area. So they will help in terms of providing services.
Through you, so they're both 30-meter towers.
45 meters.
45.
Oh, sorry, 45.
Yep.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Any further questions or clarification required? Councillor Gorell.
Thanks for the promotion. Is there, in the final comment, it said, when it's no longer required, the communications shall remove from the property. Is there any penalty written into that? Or would we write a penalty into that if somehow?
I think there's a
something-
protocol that we have in
Is it?
place.
So through your worship, that clause was put in based on the previous one on Tower Road
That fell down.
that occurred. We have included that. No Tower Road, exactly. It would have to be enforced through a property standards requirement or some other requirement if the tower was no longer used. And we wouldn't necessarily know if the tower is no longer being used based on the signal. So it's somewhat outside of our regulative authority to be able to say or enforce on it, but we can ask that that be included. So it can be included in the correspondence that we send.
And to be fair, when the tower did fall at the corner of what is now No Tower Road, they came very quickly and cleaned up so as soon as property standards spoke to them, they were here within 48 hours, I think, and had it cleaned up. So the good news is that, but I think that the whole reason that exists within the bylaw is because we're asking those people to be good corporate citizens and making sure that if their equipment is no longer being used, that it doesn't pose a threat to anyone if it's not being maintained or upkept. So, Councillor Maybe.
Thank you, Your Worship. Could we rename the road Towerless now? Just throwing it out there.
Sort of like wireless tower.
Towerless Road, yeah.
Yeah. You'll have to bring a notice of motion for that. Any further comments or questions on the motion at hand? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? And the motion is carried. Thank you. Next motion, moved by Councillor Fody, seconded by Councillor Jameson. Whereas a consultation process has occurred regarding a proposed communication facility tower at 206 Sweets Corners Road for ExploreNet Communications, represented by Forbes Brothers Limited, the agent. And whereas telecommunication facilities are regulated by Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada, formerly Industry Canada, under the Radio Communication Act, which requires proponents to consult with local land use authorities and follow local protocol concerning location of such facilities. And whereas the township has a consultation protocol described in telecommunication tower and related facilities protocol, the protocol, which includes the council providing comment on the proposed tower. Now, therefore, council supports the proposed location of the tower at 206 Sweets Corners Road and directs staff to submit a letter of concurrence to the agent indicating that the agent has complied with the protocol. The letter shall also indicate that in the event the tower is no longer required, ExploreNet Communication shall remove the tower from the property. Any discussion on this motion? Councillor Fody.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, we just need a little typo clarification there. Lines 2 and line 5 are conflicting. One says 206 Sweets Corners and line 5 says 260 Sweets Corners.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yep, so we've changed that on the resolution in consultation with the Director of Planning today. She said that was all required. All that
So
was
it
required.
is 206.
It is 206. That was a typo. Yep.
Thank you.
So the version you have is got the typo. I've got the corrected version in
Yep.
front of me. So I read the corrected one, just so whatever, if I got caught. Thank you, Madam Clerk, and thank you, Councillor Fody. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify. All those opposed, and it's carried. Next motion on the floor, moved by Councillor Fody, seconded by Councillor Jameson, that council directs staff to prepare letters of support for Bell Canada's and Lansdowne Rural Telephone Companies, which would be considered Nexicom now? Was it considered Nexicom or?
The
go-
request came from Lansdowne Telephone.
Okay, well then it's Lansdowne Telephone Company's respective broadband projects, indicating that council is supportive of all initiatives that will improve access to broadband services for the residents and businesses within the township. Discussion on this motion. Go ahead, Councillor Maybe.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this proposal it's basically to get the service provider kind of keyed up for our proposal to take it to every coffee table, correct?
Go ahead.
Thank you, through your worship. Each of these requests are separate and distinct from the township's broadband initiative. So there's a number of agencies preparing submissions for universal broadband funding. Bell and Lansdowne Telephone are two of them. So they're requesting council's support, provide letter of support to go along with their applications. That doesn't, we will still continue to move ours ahead in terms of preparing our application and submitting our application. So this is just in addition, based on their requests to support their proposals.
So with our follow-up, please.
Mhm.
So with our proposal, they're only looking at, well, I guess we're looking at them to be the provider to run down the cabling, then not to install it, as we've been talking about a little bit.
So this is distinct from what we're doing. So this is Bell Canada taking the initiative on their own to try and upgrade their network within the township. So the areas that have been identified in their correspondence to us were provided by them. That's based on the mapping showing coverage in the area and their existing facilities. I don't believe that what they're proposing covers the entire township, which is what the proposal that the township is putting forward does do. So we're still working on finalizing our business plan. Once the business plan is finalized, we'll then be going out for an RFP to find a provider and a partner in terms of construction, operation, and maintenance of the network that will be part of our universal broadband application. So it would just be that we're supporting their potential to obtain funding, but we would still continue to advance our own project as well.
Just one more follow-up. Did they have a timeline connected to theirs?
Their timeline would be consistent with the project timeline for the universal broadband funding. So the completion required through that application process, I believe, is 2027.
Okay, thank you.
Any further comment or clarity required? I will just say this, that this support that we're asking for, or that these companies are asking for, is to move the betterment of broadband forward. Having said this, I would hope that when we go to submit our application to the government, that the government does put priority on the fact that we are not going to be selective about how we roll this out, that we are looking to provide as much coverage as possible to every corner of this municipality and not to cherry pick certain areas. My understanding is that the other submissions are for denser areas, which is all great, fine and dandy for those denser areas, but it does not address the greater need, which is what our overreaching goal is here at the municipality, is to provide broadband to all, regardless of where people live. So just wanted to lay that out there, and just to also underscore and underline the work that the staff has been doing along with the Internet Broadband Advisory Committee, because without them and their tenacity throughout this whole process, we wouldn't be anywhere close to being ready. And I know that they're working on that business plan. It's already come forward in the first draft version, so we'll hopefully see it sooner rather than later, and then be looking for business partners going forward. So very excited about that. I'll let Councillor Garrell bookend this, and then I'll call the question.
You brought up a point, Your Worship, that a draft report had been received from Nordicity. And what's interesting is just this past week, of course, Bill 247 hit the Ontario legislature. I don't know if, I think it passed, I'm not sure. And it deals a lot. The first 2 of 3 sections deals with regulatory costing for poles, and that's a big deal. And secondly, the second item was the Ontario Energy Board will be forbidden from raising hydro rates because of the potential monetary hit they'll take on their pole rental. That would be an extremely, that would add a lot of weight to Nordicity's report. So that would be something that would have to be revisited for sure. I would hope, and I would imagine Nordicity is well aware of that. So thank you.
Good information to be shared. Okay, so the motion that is at hand. All those in favor of the motion, please signify. All those opposed, and the motion is carried. Okay. Now I'm on to my mayor's update. I'm actually there now. It will be brief. My update last week was a bit more comprehensive. Today is International Women's Day, and I was very pleased to be asked to be a panelist at the Small Business and Enterprise Center Women's Day celebration, which was on Friday. We had an excellent speaker, Martina Ryan, who talked about grit and grace and the challenges that some women face. And today I had the privilege of introducing Dr. Jane Philpott, former MP, and who is now the Dean of the Queen's Faculty of Health Sciences. She talked about Aboriginal representation within the medical community and how diversity in the medical community is so imperative for the well-being of all types of individuals here in Canada. But she did underscore the relevance that 8%, I believe it's up to 8% of the population is considered Aboriginal in Canada, and less than 1% of doctors are Aboriginal. But that often comes down to application process, unable to pay, unable to have all the extracurricular, the chances that maybe some of us who are more fortunate that live in easily accessible centers to have those opportunities. So it was a really interesting presentation. I was somewhat disappointed because I was really wanting to hear, of course, of the reason why she left Parliament and how that all went down. But I understand that it's still probably a bit raw even. So I had the ability to ask her the question, if you could say anything to young girls, young ladies, young women who are interested in politics, what would you say? And she said, be brave, even though you don't see yourself at the table, even though you don't believe that you may have the acumen to be there, that you should be brave and put your name forward. And my hope is that, not that I have anything against my gentleman counterparts here, and I'm very fortunate to have the council that I have. I had the support of a very good person in my life who said, you have to run, and that's my husband, and I'm very grateful for him believing in me. And part of the reason wasn't that I didn't believe in myself. I just didn't believe I could fit it in amongst everything else, but I seem to have managed. And thank you to each one of you contributing consistently, being supportive, and working through whatever challenges we have lie ahead of us. Also, just to reiterate, my counterparts at County Council, Mayor Jones from Westport and Mayor Peckford, both tireless workers. Mayor Jones, some of you may or may not know, she is the chair of Roma now, which is a very demanding spot. And Mayor Peckford in North Grenville really, truly makes me look like a slouch. She's on fire most days. She's on her way to 10 different things. And I consider myself busy, but she makes me look not busy. So I have a lot of respect, but I also, we have learned a lot from each other at County Council, and we appreciate each other's efforts, which is great to have those allies. Just a shout out to the staff who got the rink up and going. And I realized that it's a little late in the season, but at the same time, with dealing with COVID and staffing and protocols and all that sort of stuff. But my child was one of the benefactors of that rink being available this weekend, and he put it to good use all of Saturday afternoon. So our hope is that this sets us up for next year, and that we're able to provide that to our residents and our children that want to get outside and enjoy the outdoors in the winter. We had a meeting with St. Lawrence Parks Commission in regards to the Thousand Islands Parkway path. We hope that the St. Lawrence Parks Commission will be coming forward with some solutions to provide consistent safety measures and maintenance of the path. They're very committed to making it accessible for all. They've got some different ideas about that. I won't get into the specifics yet until they have something official, but it will require some input from some of our local residents. And my hope is that if everybody's as passionate as they have been about emailing us about that path, that they will step up and be part of the solution as well. So, and I have no doubt that many of them will. Other than that, I guess we're at, Deputy Mayor, I'll let you jump in.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, what was the big change this year with the outdoor rink and the fact that it was allowed to proceed when last year, because of the people who painted the pickleball court, raise such a fuss when we tried to do it last year. So what negotiation took place that they're okay with it now?
I don't think there was Director Holliday, I shouldn't speak on your behalf, but I don't think there was a negotiation at this point, but
Through your worship, we didn't have any discussions with the pickleball group, but one thing that we did do without having discussions was put down rubber matting where anybody was walking on skates before they got on and off the ice. We made sure that we provided something in between the surface and where they'd be walking with their skates, I guess.
so we've protected the court for all purposes and also skates, obviously you don't want to be walking on concrete or what have you. But if memory serves me correct, part of the reason last year was also staffing.
No, I volunteered, as did Harold Emmons. And I went over there and twice cleared the court flooded the ice, and literally got chastised for it because I was ruining the pickleball court. So I'm wondering how that changed all of a sudden, because I would have more than happy to have gone and done the same thing without having staff do it. So I'm just wondering what happened that all of a sudden we're allowed to and nobody's
Well, I think this year that it happened, well, we weren't going to have it at all during COVID because of the protocols that were required and the staffing that would have been required to limit the number of people and that sort of thing all the time. Not to say that there aren't COVID protocols still in place. But we didn't receive any complaints from anybody this year. So unless there's anything else you want to add, Deputy or Director?
We were cautious when we were removing the snow. We used a snow blower instead of using a plow, so we didn't scratch the surface or anything like that. We weren't quick enough to keep the snowmobile off of it, so that there may be some damage from somebody snowmobiling across it, but we've identified that as an issue, and we've dealt with the gates as well. So the gates are properly hung and able to lock. So going forward, that shouldn't be an issue. But we were cautious and we never received any feedback otherwise.
well, if anybody wants to have ice, come on down to my house. I've got lots of it, and it's plowed and it's flooded and it's awesome.
Counselor Maybe.
Thank you, Worshipman, through you. Yes, just to follow up, Mother Nature didn't play ball with us until almost the 1st of February either. So we were having a tough time. Just like this coming week, it's all going to be gone. But as a suggestion, the pavilion that is there would make another great location for a rink, being covered, and would be fairly easily made into a fairly sizable rink, I would think. So maybe it's something to look into for perhaps next year. Thank you.
Okay, and I believe that's it for my mayor's update and notices of motion. Oh. Okay, so the notice of motion has been submitted to me, so I'll read it because you were nice enough to ask nicely. Motion is put forward by Councillor Jameson and seconded by Councillor Foti that council directs staff to bring forward a report for council consideration that provides information regarding regulating short-term rentals, including approaches taken by other municipalities. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Jameson, do you want to speak to this, or Councillor?
Unless there are any questions with respect to the little field trip that Councillor Oki and myself and members of the staff, thank you for doing that. Just that we're at that point where we really need to take a look at how we're managing the online booking services and so on, because people are beginning to get a little concerned, and that's an understatement. So let's take a look and see where we need to go. That's really my request.
Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Just through you, Your Worship, there's different areas, as we've established. We have islands, we have rural areas, we have lots of different areas. So how do we handle that? How do we handle whether or not, say for instance, an island in the St. Lawrence, how would anybody know that it was, bed and breakfast or whatever? We would obviously know if it was in town or if it was somewhere else. So,
I think this is, I'm just gonna sort of jump in and and then I'll go to the director. We've received a number of complaints in regards to one particular property, in regards to visitors from outside of the area in coming from red zones. And that has posed some concerns by the neighbors and our ability to enforce or not enforce, because there's something called Section 22 under this provincial lack of lockdown. I forget what it would be. Anyways, Section 22 would allow the Ontario Provincial Police to direct people who are coming from red zones to leave the area. We do not have, our health unit has not enacted Section 22 yet. Kingston KFL&A, they have just late last week. They enacted Section 22. So there is a possibility it could still happen here. But part of the reason that this is coming forward is because if COVID wasn't happening, would we be having these conversations? I don't know. But people, in this particular case, we would. But it's really, the purpose of this motion is to gather information about how other municipalities are dealing with short-term rentals, to figure out whether we should go down the path of doing the same or not, and the reasons why we should or we shouldn't. And that will be presented to us by staff in a very pragmatic way so that we can make an educated decision, because there would be a cost associated with that. And you can charge what's considered a MAT tax, if you will. But we all know that there's varying success stories on that particular indication. So I'll let the director speak to it and then get off my horse.
Thank you, through you. So Section 22, first of all, is enacted by the Chief Medical Officer of Health. So a Section 22 order here could potentially allow the OPP to enforce when there are people coming in from red zones. The one that Kingston recently enacted had to do with St. Patrick's Day and enforcement of operating hours and gatherings. So there has been an email to the medical officer of health to discuss that and look at what the options might be for them to pursue a Section 22 order for our area. We have started looking at different regulatory options for short-term rentals, and there's a lot of considerations. There's different ways, different municipalities have taken different approaches. So that's what we need to look at and gather the information so we can bring a report back to council that outlines the strengths, the opportunities, and the challenges that are out there, and the costs and resources associated with it. Because as you've said yourself, how do we enforce on an island where it may or may not be an issue? And in terms of resourcing, I mean, we don't have a boat for a bylaw enforcement officer to go out to an island to be looking at things like that. So there's a lot of considerations. I don't even know what all the considerations are at this point, because there's a lot of research and work to be done. So if this motion is supported, we'll start looking into that, and we'll bring some information forward to council.
Are there any other, go ahead, Councillor, maybe.
Thank you, Worship, and through you. Again, part of this kind of stems back to possibly over a year and a half ago, when we had a resident come with an Airbnb right beside, and too many people were there. It's kind of falling in that same realm of things, because it's a day-to-day rental or even a week-to-week rental, and where there's numerous people coming from another area, but messing with the tranquility of the area that which the people who are living beside them are dealing with. So I think it's it's spearheaded a little bit that way too, that we need to find some sort of balance to keep the people that are paying their taxes here every day and having their ability to enjoy their property and not have party goers every weekend right beside them when that's not what they bought their property for. So I think we need to maybe, go down that road a little bit too. Thank you.
Any further comments in regards to the motion? Sorry, Councillor Gorell.
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship, I would just perhaps amend the word regulation to recommendations. In that I'm not-
Information regarding recommendations. Or so the way, sorry, I'm going to read it so that people understand what it is you're asking. So that council directs staff to bring forward a report for council consideration that provides information regarding regulating short-term rentals, including approaches taken by other municipalities.
So my thought would be, we don't necessarily yet want to be regulating. We want information on how best to proceed in the future. And I'm looking beyond COVID, really. COVID's going to be, well, I shouldn't say that. We hope COVID is a thing of the past. But short-term rentals are not going to be. Would be more comfortable looking for not necessarily a regulatory environment, but just recommendation on how open the discussion and where are we going to go with it. Maybe we're happy, maybe we're not. So I just recommend, or pardon me, would like to amend the word. That's it.
Just
Thank you.
strike the word regulating, just regarding short-term rentals, including approaches taken by other. Does anybody have a problem with that friendly amendment to strike the word regulating? Okay. Sorry, I know friendly amendment's not a real thing, but we're going to do it tonight here because I'm the chair. And it's 8:15. And do you have something to add, Deputy Mayor?
Well, not much really. But we need to regulate out of town. We got, as you said, red zones, Toronto, Montreal. We've got a lot of places that that are going to come our way to rent these places. So I think we need to put something in place soon. So.
Well, it's going to take some time for the staff to come back with some recommendations one way or the other, but Section 22 could be enacted as any day by our chief medical officer, in which case then there would be a way for us to manage that. I did speak with the local inspector, the OPP detachment in regards to this, and they are brushing up on how this is rolling out in other jurisdictions across the province. But I understand that, people have concerns with how people are getting here. There was a rental car from Montreal for people that had flown from BC here. It seems a long way to go for a getaway, and the last thing I'm going to do is get on a plane. There could be a lot of other circumstances that brought them here, but just in general, it's unnerving for the residents. We don't have any ability to enforce because that Section 22 doesn't exist right now. But the good news is that the residents are pleased with the fact that we're addressing their needs and we're trying to get answers and we're trying to get more information for them. And that's all that they really want. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
I'm going to be bringing forth a notice of motion at the next meeting, but anyway, as someone who's on the 401 every day of the week, I see the license plates and where they're from. I don't know the history, whether, why they're here. Maybe they
don't have enough OPP officers.
Maybe they were left here. Maybe they were, I don't know why they're here, but I just know there's a lot of out of residence plates on our area of the world. And I think we need to slow that down.
Well, if you're bringing a notice of motion, we'll need that for the next council meeting, which is
You're going to get it.
okay. Sorry, Councillor Fody.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, the Section 22 that our neighboring municipality has enacted, how wordly is it? Is it a very complex or is it simplistic?
Your worship, it's something that the chief medical officer of health has to do. So the municipality doesn't have a role in the passing of it. I really don't know the details of what's involved. I know that Kingston has used it a couple of times for a couple of different events or occurrences throughout the COVID pandemic, but I do not know the details of it. It's something we could look into, but it's something that definitely the chief medical officer of health has to do. And the OPP needs that in effect to be able to knock on a door and say,
You have
where
to
are
be.
you from?
So if we were to go on their website, it would be readily available.
If you Google section 22, and actually I would Google section 22 and the
Okay.
Kingston, an area of health and land.
KFLA.
KFLA. Lennox and Addington, sorry. I was having a hard time
Thank you.
there. Okay. Councilor Gorell, you want to say something?
And we're still dealing with two timeframes here, one post-COVID, one current COVID. So we've discussed that this 22 is available. So if we add to that, simply say something to the extent of, and we encourage the health unit to report back and enact this bill.
I think it would be a
in
separate-
a separate recommendation perhaps, and that takes care of a bit of our time frame or the two timeframes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Rowe. It would be a separate recommendation, I think, that would need to come forward. But also, it has been discussed. We've already received notice. We've already received correspondence from an OPP officer requesting that our chief medical officer look into this because they have no ability to enforce. And Dr. Stewart actually said that they are looking at it. So not to say that it wouldn't hold any weight, but I can make a phone call to Dr. Stewart tomorrow and just say that we had a conversation at council last night. And it seems that we're supportive of this to at least give our OPP officer something to work with. Because I don't think that any of our residents should be living in fear. Maybe that's a strong word, but concerned for their safety because of the people that are coming from outside, specifically red zones. Okay, so I'm going to call the question that's at hand, which is that council directs staff to bring forward a report for council consideration that provides information regarding short-term rentals, including approaches taken by other municipalities. Any discussion on the motion further? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify. All those opposed? And it's carried. Thank you. Okay. So next on the agenda, any announcements? Go ahead, Councillor Maybe.
This is going to be a little different. Oh yay, oh yay, oh yay. We proclaim International Women's Day and that our mothers, our wives, our daughters, our granddaughters, our mayor, clerk, and all female staff that we have in our abundance around the council table. We commend you for all the work, all the diligence that you have done, and that you have done a great job here each and every day. And we are proud of every one of you. And thank you for your due diligence and your continued work in making this township a better place to live. Here ends this proclamation. Long live the Queen.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor. Maybe that was very nice. Councillor Jameson.
Your worship, just to bring council's attention that the Ontario government is launching consultations with the municipal sector to strengthen accountability for council members. This was announced on Friday. Province wants to ensure that councillors, I'm quoting the government here, the province wants to ensure that councillors and heads of council maintain a safe and respectful workplace and carry out their duties as elected officials in an ethical and responsible manner. I think this is generally a very good move on the part of the province. The details of how the consultation will work have not been announced as far as I can find so far, but I'm hoping that staff, as well as all of us around the table, keep an eye out for it, because I think we have some stories to tell that might actually bring some clarity to some of the challenges that we all face trying to deal with these things. Also, with the rural council, I know there's a lot of stuff going on in Ottawa. in particular, but it has its own act. City of Ottawa Act, City of Toronto Act. So it's very important for smaller municipalities to engage in this discussion, in my view. So I hope we'll all step up when the time comes. Thank you.
Any further announcements? I'll just add that as of late this afternoon, the health unit did start rolling out booking appointments for vaccinations for 80-year-olds and up. So Terry, you can sign up later today. And I'm not to make light of it. I know that people have been waiting very long and very patiently for it, but I am proud to say that our local medical office put out a call that if anybody was having difficulty, because it is an online booking system, which is difficult for some seniors. So we would ask you to call on your neighbors, call on your friends that are in this age bracket, ask if they need help, if they need assistance booking online. Otherwise, they're going to be on hold for a very long time. And the health unit keeps putting out messaging that they're trying their best to get to those calls. People are getting frustrated. So if this can help alleviate any sort of frustration, please, please, please reach out to your elderly neighbors and friends to see if they've been able to get through and make their appointment. And apparently, the moment that they get the call from the family doctor and they make the appointment, it's very quick that they can get in to get the vaccinations. So it's good news. Go ahead, Councillor Fody.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to our Director of Community Services, how timely would getting this message out in a paper form be? When's our next newsletter or some type of circulation that way? Because a lot of people that are living alone in this age bracket are not computer friendly. That's my point.
Our next edition goes out later this month for the April May edition.
So
Perfect.
we'll see if we can put something in the newsletter and shift that around.
It should be kind of front and center, given the seriousness.
I would think so.
Thank you.
So directors may hand note. Thank you very much. Any further announcements? Seeing none, I'll move to the motion, which is moved by Councillor Fody, seconded by Councillor Jameson, that 3 readings and final passage be granted to bylaws number 21-018 and 21-019, and that 3 readings and final passage be granted to bylaw number 21-020, and that being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Corporation of the Township of Leeds in the Thousand Islands at its March 1st, 2021 Committee of the Whole meeting and its March 1st and 8th, 2021 council meetings. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? And the motion is carried. Non-debatable motion. Motion's put forward by Councillor Jameson, seconded by Councillor Fody, that council adjourn. All those in favor, please signify. All those opposed, and the motion is carried.